have certainly watched the Super Week games. They've taken away a Voyboy trademark of Tryndamere. Edward is still not getting Blitzcrank. I want to see if they actually respect the Thresh Prince, though, here.
And this is actually a really smart pen by Vulcun, because one of the kind of predictions I think about the new jungle is because of the increased importance of the buffs, we're going to see substantially more AD carries and supports going mid.
Yeah.
Because they have more pressure when trying to counter jungle buffs and can relieve more pressure when trying to stop them. And we've talked to the players in the past, even before the changes, and Blitzcrank was the best support to put mid when you're specifically trying to pressure the red and the blue buff. So because Edward's so good at it, banning that out, smart.
All right, so, and of course, even Patoy was a soothsayer there and did that in week 1 as well. So, a lot of smart bans coming out. Of course, the Thresh, ironically enough, banned away by Curse. They don't want to give that to BloodWater. TF, of course, dropped as well. And we've seen a lot of Jace overall in the week, and he's going to go back in there for Vulcun.
And I want to see Kennen here from Voyboy just because it would be the exact opposite of what we saw in week 1. I don't think it's going to happen because I think enough teams have picked Kennen into mass knockaway teams that they're a little bit wary of it now. That CLG game earlier today when they were playing against Cloud9, when Kennen was against Janna, Tristana, and Jace, Balls was a really sad man that game. So even though there's a Jace now, I don't think Curse would pick Kennen. Not saying, even though Voyboy can play Kennen, it's just there's too many counters up for it.
And I mean, who's going to pick Tristana more than Zuna? Like, him and Nian are like the two guys you could be like, he's going to insta-lock Tristana like every game, and Kennen will just be a sad Yordle, and then Audun will be happy. So, yeah, anyway, the picks have come through, though. A pretty good backline diving team here from Curse, though, with both Malphite and Elise, and they care a little bit less about knockbacks, I guess.
And when Curse is good, they pick the super divers. Both the Repel from Elise and the Unstoppable Force from Malphite go right through pretty much everything here. And the other interesting thing is I wouldn't be too surprised if those are actually Curse's solo laners. If we saw Nyjacky play Malphite and Voyboy play Elise. I haven't seen that much Elise out of Saintvicious. I don't think it's his style of champion. So I really wouldn't be too surprised if we saw it out of Curse.
Mid Malphite as a champion, we've just seen get more and more popular. It's been played a lot in Europe more recently. Froggen and Peke especially have been playing it a lot. And it's been popular in China for a while as well. So we just see him ever so slowly get picked up more and more likely. The Kennen, though, is actually grabbed up by Vulcun, though. We have the knockbacks. We'll grab him ourselves, no problem.
And this is pretty smart for them because since Curse has already picked a very heavy dive through team and they're going so far in that Vulcun now has a bit of counter initiation or free initiation for Kennen, because in order for Curse to fight, they have to go pretty much 1,000 range into the enemy, which means if anyone wants to support on Curse, like if Cop wants to run and hit something, he has to run through a Kennen ultimate, which is very difficult and will make the team fights a little bit touchy for Curse to get themselves involved with.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty shocking surprise for him then when he tries to run in there and gets stunned up and dies out. So Curse has to make their last few choices, though. They are going to go for that Draven. Cop has been picking him up a hell of a lot this season. And, I mean, they're still going man mode. They've grabbed Leona as well.
Yeah, full steam ahead for these guys. There's like, Kennen, we don't care about Kennen. We're just going to keep coming. And that lane in particular for Cop and Edward is probably the most aggressive lane you can run with Draven. Not only because Leona is already an aggressive support, but because of Draven's bleed damage will instantly proc any of Leona's Sunlight passive. So level 2 from that lane is the strongest level 2 lane you can have in the game.
Oh my gosh. So be aware if you're Sycho Sid or be aware if you're Zuna in BloodWater. Heck, it's they lane swap enough. It could be really anyone getting the bad end of the Sunlight bleed combo. But I don't envy Vulcun right now. I really don't. Draven's a scary man.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Curse has picked a very heavy dive team, very in your face, and now it's probably going to be a little bit about Vulcun picking safety, disengage, and late game. Because if they can get to those spots, then they could potentially come out with it. Vulcan's putting together a lot of counter initiation on their team right now. BloodWater's getting his Sona pick, which is his favorite support in the world. Getting at 5th pick, he's saying, what an easy thing for me to be able to do now. I can just play Sona. Zuna has his Tristana. Most people on Vulcun have the champions that they want.
And in fact, yeah, they have so much comfort there as well. We'll see where Kennen and Jace actually go at the end of the day, because both have been successful on Jace, both those solo laners here. But Curse at the same time, right? We talked about the very, very beginning of the split where poke comp, that's not really Curse style, but they played, well, Voyboy's going to carry us. They played kind of more their style, and here's a whole bunch of all-inning. And aside from playing Draven now suddenly, feels pretty cursey.
Yeah, everything else on this Curse composition makes the most amount of sense. normally would see a misfortune in this combination
Yeah.
for Curse back in the spring split, because he would kind of just try to spray damage everywhere and get assists. But now he's going to have to run in with the team, which is probably the one maybe slight hole in this Curse composition, because I don't see how Cop's going to get to fights. He's not going to make it through Crescendo, and he's not going to make it through Kennen's ultimate. I think Curse is going all out aggressive, but in doing so, they've given Vulcun their home style champions too.
So it's going to be a fun one then. It's two teams really playing their style, and they're picking kind of for themselves. You mentioned, okay, look, we can't pick Kennen against Tristana and stuff because that's very, very scary. And okay, they made those adaptations, but you said, yeah, Curse wants to go in, and they're going to just full steam ahead, rocket. If only they had Blitzcrank, it would fit the moniker even better. But at the same time, as you say, Vulcun has champions they love to play. They're playing their style, and it's now a clash of, this is our game, that's your game, who's going to win?
Curse wants to win this game in 25 minutes.
Okay.
That's the composition they're playing right now. They don't want to get it to a late game where they can't get through to Tristana and run through the Vulcan Peel. They're going to try to win the lanes early at level 2. Saintvicious is going to try to gank everything with Jarvan. The early flag control for Vision is going to be very huge for Saintvicious in this game as they run into the jungle. And Curse, this should be a very aggressive action game for them.
So here we go, guys. On to the Rift, game number 3 here in Week 2. And of course, we have 4 more games tomorrow, as well as this game and another one today, plus Europe. Oh man, there's a lot of League of Legends action going on, and I love esports. So let's watch these teams get out of their base. BloodWater making it up to the top of the map. He's got 4 wards plus an Explorer in his inventory. Actually 5, but he's going to give his team a good bit of vision.
And there's actually a chance, now that we have so much increased importance due to the extra experience on blue and red buff, plus the small camps not spawning until 155, that the days of supports ever starting with a fairy charm are gone. Supports have to start with all these wards, because I think wards in general are going to increase every single game now that we're on this 3.8 patch, and that's why there's so many wards on the map right now. But surprisingly, both these teams are playing very scared.
It's interesting too. I actually remember watching the OGN Champions Finals as well. I actually had an Excel doc open and graphed everyone's items for all the games of the Grand Finals because I wanted to build like them because they're better than me. And every single game, both supports open full consumables. None of them were even going fairy charms, even back last patch. So the evolution just seems to be, yes, vision freaking important for us here. We want to make sure we don't get caught out level 1, level 2, and beyond.
And to me, these openings are telling me that these teams haven't necessarily felt too comfortable in the new jungle. They are potentially worried about getting counter-invaded, walking through wards because they know everyone else is going to be kind of over-warding. And it's almost a gentleman's agreement for these guys to say, all right, we haven't really figured what's going on here. Let's just clear our jungler. And as a jungler, when I'm playing defensive, I love it when the other team plays defensive. It's just saying, oh, thank goodness I get to just farm. Plus, there's no deep wards in any enemy jungle, which means these junglers are pretty much free to do whatever they want.
Well, that's good for them. So both of them will be starting at blue buff, and Cop and Edward are still going to go here for that early double golem. And actually, interestingly enough, just to talk about this a little bit, he takes the big golem, then goes to lane to not miss any experience and lets Edward finish off the double golem camp.
That's the new thing that teams are doing now that the double golems spawn at 155 if they still want to take them. It's to minimize the amount of lane experience lost, and it just increases level 2 power. So while it's a little bit more difficult to do the double golems, you can still work around it if you have such a powerful set of level 1 champions such as Draven and Leona.
Yeah, because compared to what Vulcun did, Zuna and BloodWater didn't take double golems. They ran to actually lane right away. So that actually small advantage did go to Curse as far as jungle experience goes. Both junglers now level 3, and they're already both sides looking for ganks.
And up top with Saintvicious, they have 2 pink wards up top, but Saintvicious is still going to get seen by the ward because of the very clever ward that Vulcun put up in that river way earlier. Saintvicious thought he was going to be sneaky there, but Sycho Sid is just giving up.
He's so far behind, too. That was the first thing that BloodWater did in the game, was run up there, put that over the wall, and he's hiding in a brush saying, look, Saint, I know you're here, just I'll give up the turret, no big deal. Cloud and Nyjacky, though, fighting in the mid lane. I suppose, like, this is a normal top lane fight of, like, Jace versus Malphite, but with the Rocket in the mid lane here, gotta say, I mean, Malphite likes to build armor. I feel like they'd be pretty happy for Nyjacky, I would think.
It's a pretty solid pick for them. Malphite is somewhat known as a counter pick to Jace because he can survive him in lane, but the thing that I really want to talk about here is how Vulcun won this turret trade because they had to spend less money on wards. Curse was going for a more aggressive play since they put 2 pink wards in the top lane that didn't give them any advantages, whereas Vulcun was just able to react off of the 175 gold vision ward they placed, take the turret, and know that Saintvicious was still top. and might even give them this Dragon.
Wow, what a great cash if they can make this happen. Dragon down below half health, only 4 minutes in, and Mandatory Cloud really helping his team out there. And yeah, that dual lane being top for Curse just gives Vulcun complete control, 4-minute Dragon, and they've built themselves already an 800 gold lead.
Yeah, all about the ward. And at this point, they might just try to do it again. We have the 80 carry and support from Curse, Edward and Cop going down the bottom lane, but Sycho Sid is freezing the top lane on Kennen right now, so he has a monstrous stack of minions, only getting as slow of a last hit as possible to maximize the stack, and essentially starving Voyboy of farm right now, unless Voyboy goes and tries to do something else.
Now, let's actually track what Voyboy ends up doing as a result of this, because he's walking towards that top lane, but he's just gonna be kind of alone and have very little ward coverage, and I'd be surprised if he got to do much without getting ganked by a Lee Sin.
Yeah, it's not an easy place for Voyboy right now, because if you look at the other side of the map, Zuna was able to take double golems, and Cop and Edward were not able to freeze their minion wave. So Zuna is going to continue to farm, whereas Voyboy has no safety right now. So not only did Vulcun win the turret plus dragon trade, they're winning the minion wave wars as well.
Let's watch what ends up happening in this 2v2, because Curse and Vulcun are going to go ahead and play that heads up. And of course, Ristana is still squishy, and they even have a level disadvantage, 3-3 versus 4-4. And, you know, people criticize Cop for being defensive, but he might be going for a dive as Saintvicious coming in from behind as well.
And they kind of have to do this, because it's the only opportunity they have for attack unless they're deciding to gank a Jace. They know Voyboy's getting punished, so Curse is trying to punish Vulcun for essentially freezing and losing map pressure.
Ooh, Edward almost went for the push right there. You saw him, like, look in. It was like, my W's up. I could go for the damage. We could dive. Not quite worth it. He's got rocket jump, but no,
he
they're
wants
still
to go. Leona is one of the best tower divers in the game with that armor.
There we go. She takes the turret dagger. The jump comes on in. Exhaust by there as well. Zuna taking a bunch of pain and is still ever taking the turret shots. It's now Cop. He's got to be careful. Only got one more shot left, and BloodWater survives it. Are you kidding? What amazing defensive play here by the Vulcun squad. Burned all their summoners, but they got out.
Also, because they have multiple defensive summoners, BloodWater used his exhaust as well as Zuna his barrier, and now mancloud is down to support.
Oh, and the barrier did nothing. mancloud, here comes the Goomba stomp in from Zuna, but the dash away from Saintvicious is going to get him out. Here comes Xmithie, though they're still chasing on down. The attacks are there. Cop's taking some damage. Oh, the first blood comes out, the second kill as well. And here comes the chase. Rocket jump, no mana for it, but a 2 for 0.
Long time chase by Vulcun pays off, but all of this was set up by Vulcun's movement and manipulation of the minion waves. Saintvicious didn't really have a choice other than to try to dive that. You could tell they're trying to rely on their execution to make up for being outplayed in the minion waves. Curse was forced into that turret dive because they were losing overall farm and pressure in those lanes. Then Vulcun countered by having mancloud run bottom at the proper time and really made that work into a full advantage.
Absolutely beautiful then by this Vulcun team, making the early moves. And, you know, they said they had Curse's number, and right now they are showing it. Even the excellent play of Edward and the good dive mechanics couldn't quite turn that one around. Zuna, though, he realized he was a little bit overextended there, has to back out of this one. He's still going to be safe, and just to look at it, though, safe or not, he's down quite a bit of minions against Cop.
Yeah, he is. It's one of the benefits of what's been happening, but
Nyjacky
tries to go. I don't think he's going to get much.
Yeah, Ignite's on, won't survive. Okay, yeah, he's good.
Yeah, BloodWater was there with his heal aura, which also gives armor and magic resistance, was there to stop the spike on mancloud and kind of heal him up, burning everything from Nyjacky, and really just allowing mandatorycloud to go back and pick up his nice, crisp, fun blue buff.
Wow, beautiful stuff. So a lot of things going just really right for these guys here. Cop still down at the bottom lane. The last turret dive didn't work, but of course it's Draven. If you're not fighting people, you're not quite doing it right. Xmithie, though, you know, we talked about how important it was to steal away some of these buffs. He's got the ward down on the red buff that's going to be a target soon for these Vulcun players.
Yeah, and Saintvicious needs to make this Jarvan pick work, in a sense. They need to start getting more happening, and Vulcun is going to hope that this dive happens at the right time. If you see mancloud's mid wave is pushed up to turret, which means he is free to roam in and help with Saintvicious as well. This is not just Xmithie going for this kill, this is two people.
There we go, the red buff has been stolen. He kicks him into the wall. So much damage, and the steal from mandatorycloud. Sorry, the kill secure from mandatorycloud. Gets another bit, 300 gold for him. Vulcun are still controlling this game.
And a lot of it just has to do with their waves that are mattering being pushed up. They are conceding the bottom lane pressure to having Cop and Edward being pushed up while they're invading for the rest of the map. Another really well-played move by Vulcun on this new 3.8 jungle patch.
doing a very, very good job of just invading and just making everyone's life very, very difficult. So, Voyboy and Sycho Sid are now in a duel in the top lane. We talked about how Sid was able to freeze that earlier on, and that's manifested into a 15 minion kill lead. He hasn't even gone back to base. He's got a Doran's Blade still.
And when he goes back in shops, he might be able to duel Voyboy, because that's 2,165 gold that Sycho Sid's going to be able to purchase with. And I don't think Voyboy is going to be able to successfully freeze these lanes. Something that just keeps happening since Saintvicious has been getting pressure in his jungle is he's almost dictating that Curse needs to reshove up their lanes, which means that if Vulcun wants to, they can continue to freeze, which is what Vulcun wants to do. Because we talked earlier about Curse wanting to end this game by 25 minutes. Curse is not on pace to end this game by 25 minutes.
No, that's actually a very, very rough thing to do. It's actually something you talked about backstage in CLG Cloud9, where the CLG had probably a better late game situation because of Tristana and Elise and guys like that who would keep skilling throughout the game. And that the early kills that CLG grabbed basically stopped C9 from being able to end the game early. So, you know, we're too far ahead early on. You can try to claw your way into this one, but come 45 minutes, the game is ours. And, I mean, does this look similar to you in this sort of situation?
This looks more in the favor of Vulcun.
Wow.
CLG was kind of able to hold on. Right now, Vulcun is just winning in most corners. The only way they're kind of losing is that Cop is out farming Zuna, but that is to be expected as a Tristana. We know that most Tristanas hope to get out of the laning phase with a 20 to 30 minion kill disadvantage. Yeah. So the fact that Zuna is only down by 12 right now after that latest shove is great for Vulcun.
And just to add salt to the wound, the minion kills are lower because of the kills, turrets, and dragons. Zuna is up more than 300 gold over Cop. So, heck, I'll exit lane 300 gold ahead of Tristana. That sounds great to me. So, as you say, everything's going very, very well for the Vulcun lineup. They've actually grouped a fair number of people towards mid, but it's just for dragon control, it seems.
And also another thing that's helping Vulcun right here is the overall buff control, and they're not only up in gold, they're up in experience. There's a double buff on Mandatory Cloud and a red buff that is just expiring now on Xmithie. But that just meant they had the accumulated experience of those buffs, and they're able to bully Curse around a little bit. This is another kind of desperation force play by Curse, because if Curse can't even control the dragon, Vulcun just has this game in the bag. So Vulcun is fine leaving that dragon uncontested, but as soon as Curse goes for it, Vulcun will look to collapse.
So right now we have just that duel in the top lane, and the dragon, of course, the eye of the other 8 champions on the map right here. Voyboy has caught up a little bit in minions to Sid, so the trip that Sid went back and bought some items, brought the gap a little bit closer. Global Gold's still there and whatnot, but that matchup at least is holding even for Void despite the early freeze. It's the 4-on-4 for the dragon that you talked about meaning so much, and Xmithie, in full vision of a ward, is just starting this.
This is surprising to me by Vulcun, but it does look like it could just be a stall tactic. I thought he was going to be a little bit more all in on that, but Elise hopping over the back of the dragon wall is
not too hard.
Not too hard to come back out again. They were essentially ward checking that to see what Curse's reaction was, and since they didn't have any pinks, that move told them that Curse had good vision control over the dragon area.
That's a really clever move. Just leave the Sona there.
Because it was a safe check.
Exactly. That was such a cool move right there. So by the way, guys, Lee Sin and a friend, check a dragon all you want. Just hop right back out, save the W, or heck, have a sight Sona do it yourself. But either way, again, a great move by the Vulcun players. We look again at this duel to the top lane, and it kind of just keeps going back and forth. Sid is trying to push as much as possible. Just he's not getting a lot of damage in the turret at the end of the day.
No, he's just kind of doing his thing. This is a very common strategy of Vulcun with Sycho Sid. They just kind of let him be, and if you can neutralize Voyboy in a Curse matchup, that's great.
Oh yeah.
If Sycho Sid can be traded for a Voyboy, they're going to do that every day of the week.
So one of the big playmakers then not too much of a factor here for Curse. They've really not found a kill on the map so far. Voyboy, usually a big playmaker, not finding any, of course, for himself. With the blue respawning, though, Curse says, all right, let's take another objective back. They've actually managed to wait out most of those buffs from Vulcun, and now at least we'll have one on Nyjacky here. And
I really wonder if Curse is going to continue pressing, or if they're going to kind of realize that the pressing was doing them no good. I don't know what Curse should do in this situation, because it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
If they press, Vulcan's been able to punish them, but if they just let the farm game continue, they're probably going to lose as well. So Curse has to find a creative way of probably finding unmanned fights or just getting good pick opportunities, but just with the way the minion waves have been manipulated by Vulcun is not happening.
So it's going to be Curse looking for some kind of opening then, and hoping that either Vulcun slips up or Curse finds some beautiful way into a fight. But right now it's Vulcun finding a way onto this turret. down incredibly low on health, and just the siege is there. The nice haste, but here comes the jump in. Saintvicious, the knockup on Zuna. He is taking all the focus. He's still alive. Are you serious? Finally gets popped, but it's a 1-for-1. The fight's going to continue. Let's watch Cop. He is on Draven. He's throwing axes at people, but mancloud has something to say about this. Shock Blast coming across. It's going to be Vulcun picking up the turret, and a 1-for-1 for a turret, still Vulcan's favor.
And that was everything being burned onto Zuna. They dumped they threw everything at him, including the kitchen sink, and it was a 1-for-1. So, I don't know about that one. Vulcan counterattacked, got the turret, and we're still up. That was probably what Curse needed to do. They say, this is the priority. We're going to have to practice diving this guy because we're going to have to do it in the late game. Let's see how it goes. It didn't go too well, but I think that was the right call for Curse.
I think you're right as well, and at least next time around, if they do it in the next 3 to 5 minutes, barrier and or flash will be down, so maybe they'll have better success next time when Zuna is a little less hoppy. And of course, the other payment for that fight was a dragon picked up as well for Vulcan. They are constantly picking up these global objectives, constantly scaling ahead. And actually the fight in the top lane, ooh, Sid dodged away in the cocoon. That was Void trying to make those moves. The single player aspect for that top laner does help Curse if he can make something happen.
And it was a pretty nice dodge by Sycho Sid, but that is just the mechanical skill of Voyboy coming through, and also just the lane strength of Elise. Surprisingly, the Seeker's arm guard on Voyboy was doing a lot of good against Sycho Sid's Kennen. Since early on in the game, Kennen's still relying a lot on his auto attack physical damage. But now, Sycho Sid, now that he's picked up the extra bit of magic penetration and a little bit more ability power, Voyboy might not be winning that matchup as solidly as he was just as we saw.
He's definitely got a lot more to worry about, and to add insult to injury, that Negatron cloak. You know, wouldn't you like that right now, Voyboy? The Negatron cloak, that magic resist. Yeah, it's kind of nice on the Lightning Yordle. It's kind of nice on a Spider Lady. We'll see.
If only Sycho Sid didn't have all the Dragon Gold and Turret Gold, he wouldn't have been allowed to buy that item. Because the farm is close to even, but the gold difference is 700, which completely makes up that cloak.
That's rough. That's like, that's what, 20% more gold than your opponent. I would love, like, as a top laner, my team just constantly just took dragons for me, and I just am richer than my opponent despite getting outplayed. Or going equal in this case.
It's like having a Janna on your team.
Oh, I have more move speed. That's got to be so fun for Udyr players.
Oh
God.
It is.
Oh yeah, Jazz just like
Thank you very
grinning.
much.
Yeah. Oh, I made Locust pick Janna all the time back in the day. All right, so let's take a look at what these Vulcan players are going to go for now, because actually I guess they don't have to make any moves, right? They're going to win in 20 minutes anyway.
Exactly. That's actually kind of why we see Zuna off in the side lane right now. It may end up costing them this turret, which would actually be a bad call, but I think they can hold off and defend this as long as mancloud can get some minion kills. And Vulcan's 4v5!
He's kicked in Cop, the crescendo comes across, there's Xmithie getting focused down, there's the ult from Nyjacky! A 1-for-0 so far, Cop still in the back lines, the reinitiate from mancloud picks up one, can he get another? The knockout from Satan, and here comes Zuna! Zuna focusing down on Cop, doing what damage he can, the ult comes across, gets another one there as well. 3 have been picked up for just the one, now Void caught up as well, and the full ace coming in, Vulcan turning that fight around hardcore.
5-4-1. Vulcan initiated that 4v5 knowing that Zuna would be able to make it up near the end of that. Even though Vulcan would have been okay slow playing, once again Curse was near a Vulcan turret, so they had absolutely nowhere to run, which gave Vulcan a window to capitalize on their advantage. There was a 16.5 minute Mura mana for Mandatory Cloud that just got completed. He didn't even use it in that fight. As you can see, he still has close to full mana. But this is bad to worse for Curse as they lose essentially a 4.5v5, 5 kills to 1.
And of course, they lost the turret for it as well. We always talk about these teams capitalizing on a team fight win with a global objective. And Vulcan's greedy. They're going to capitalize on 2 global objectives for a team fight win.
So when I said Curse wanted like a 25-minute win, they might get a 25-minute game. So part of it was there, but Vulcan is just completely one step ahead of Curse this game, and it could be over fairly soon if we keep track of this one. Curse hasn't been able to pull off their strategy. They had one dive that worked onto Zuna when they were together, but everything else has fallen apart. 4 turrets, 2 dragons, and a just crazy amount of farm given up to mancloud.
He is massive, 156 minions, 4 kills and 5 assists. The man has 7,600 gold, by far the most in the game. No one on Curse even has, well, I guess just Draven actually has 5,000 gold, but he is heads and shoulders above everyone else. And oh my gosh.
He's 2,000 gold ahead of everybody on Curse right now.
God. Yeah, that's a little brutal. That's going to be hard to deal with. And you got the Mermana combined as well. And Sycho Sid's getting himself closer and closer to what I assume is going to be a Zhonya's Hourglass, so that even he can't get dealt with easily in these team fights.
And that'll help them even more. Sycho Sid, he wasn't even the one that died that last fight. It was actually Xmithie, who's went for that Golem Spirit as well, which is actually a little bit new. We saw the Lee Sin in an earlier game do this as well. We saw Meteos do it instead of the Aegis, so that's a little bit strange of a choice. But now, I wonder if Curse is even going to be able to control their own blue buff, because there's a Lee Sin ready to steal, and Vulcun could go in for a 4v5, but they do end up just smiting it away.
Saint does have to smite that away. Unfortunately, would have liked to have it go onto Nyjacky, so even if you don't steal it, forcing it onto the not right person can always be a nice thing for you if you're an invading jungler. So kind of a minor victory there for Vulcun, and the poke continues. Shock Blast, we saw how good they were from Neon on CLG. They're pretty good for mancloud here on Vulcun as well.
mancloud is real scary. He's going to be having a Black Cleaver pretty soon as well. There's the lane pressure coming up the sides. Zuna's not even at Tristana time yet. He's level 11 with the Infinity Edge. This is actually kind of like the mid-game lull everybody talks about on Tristana, but it's not there because his gold advantage is there on Cop, and unless a Draven kind of runs away with the game, he's not a huge threat. Cop will have to get very lucky to pick some kills back up and become a force, because right now, he can't stand toe-to-toe with nearly anybody on Vulcun.
And that's a scary prospect when Draven doesn't get to fight people properly. The push still coming in from Vulcun. They are looking to make this that 25-minute game that we talked about. They're definitely in the driver's seat. They've got the range. They've got people to hit turrets down. And they're still actually just splitting to keep the waves pushed, looking for somewhere to find an opening on a turret.
And I don't even know if Vulcun needs to, once again, which is why Curse is kind of charging out. They're going to take the outers as they get them, and then potentially go for a Baron a little bit later. I don't think Vulcun needs to go for a 20-minute Baron, unless it gets gifted to them by a Curse initiation. Curse is once again forced into trying to fight Vulcun, because they know that there's an inevitable ticking time bomb in Vulcan's team composition that probably outclasses Curse's comp. That's
a rough thing to be under, and of course we talked about, or you talked about how well Vulcun were controlling minion waves, keeping pressure on various parts of the map, and out-positioning, out-maneuvering the opposition. We just saw a free turret kill on the right-hand side of the map. There wasn't a power play, not a 5v4, there wasn't Baron being grabbed, it was just, we had Lee Sin push the right-hand side, you didn't react, mancloud showed up, another turret picked up, 5-1, and the lead just keeps on growing, 33,000 to 24,000.
And this is an example, again, of Vulcun outmaneuvering Curse, because as Vulcun was pushing up that bottom lane, BloodWater was clearing out wards at Baron. So Curse had sent 2 to respawn to bottom, but immediately was sucked over to Baron to defend that objective. And that's why Jace got damaged in mid lane. Like, Curse can't keep up with the movement of Vulcun right now.
Absolutely just crazy map control then by these guys, and Vulcun was so adamant that BloodWater was the right fit for the team. The calls he made, the coordination he brought to the team would just do everything for them, and we've seen that really here, that more so than just individual outplays, more so than, I mean, you can contribute part of it to team composition, but really the calls, the map movement, the mobility, and the control has been such a great blessing here for this Vulcun lineup. The Dragon getting taken away for free as well. I mean, look at the minimap. Look at the vision.
Look at the Draven ult that just went off as well.
Yeah.
Because that shows even more so the vision control and the amount of darkness Curse is under. Cop threw that to scout Baron when no one on Vulcun was within 50 feet of it. If we're using 50 Teemos, we're going to use League of Legends metrics right now. Curse had no idea what was going on. So really the only thing you do when you're that blind is you just roll up mid and say, show yourselves, Vulcun. We're going to fight you here. But if they do, they're going to lose that as well. So this is bad.
Oh my gosh. And the darkness, of course, they actually had a small winner to put some damage in that dirt before Vulcun showed up. But of course, Curse didn't know that. Had to back out after pushing a minion wave down. Says, well, at least I know where you guys are. You were somewhere around mid lane out of turret 20 seconds ago. And we'll see what happens. Xmithie still lurking around in the shadows. Shows his face in the mid lane. And let's see what other lane control this Vulcun squad can go for.
I think they're going to be going for red buff control in the Curse jungle, as well as top outer turret. So unless they get gifted this Baron, they're going to go for the top turret. But because they have control of the red jungle and pretty good ward coverage throughout, if you see like the deep base wards they have on Curse as well, they have pretty good control of where Curse is coming into, as well as if Curse comes through to stop Baron, mandatorycloud would flank around the back and get free access to Cop if they wanted to kill him in a team fight. So Vulcun is positioned very smartly right here.
Very, very good concave by these guys. And you saw how easily they could back away from Saint. The ward coverage you mentioned, just let them disengage so cleanly. Take away the Wraith Camp, because, hey, why the heck not? Let's steal 61 gold. Have fun with that one. And yeah, they got to kind of test the waters on Baron and say, okay, are you going to show up? Do you have enough vision to check this? The driving flag toss, let Curse stop them. But again, it's a matter of Vulcun saying, well, where can we apply pressure next? Let's do the CLG school of thought. Let's actually send our AD carries a split pusher. Let that Tristana get gigantic with no one opposing her. And then we kind of secure our late game advantage if she just gets 300 minion kills.
And this is a very interesting game if we just look at the history these two teams have together and how well Vulcun has been doing against Curse in the past. Because if we look back to even the spring playoffs of last split, as we see some, I don't think much is going to happen in the short time, so that's why I'm going to try to talk about this. Vulcun has pretty much been doing the same things against Curse 4 or 5 games in a row now. There's been a lot of Lee Sin from Xmithie. mancloud's Jace has been incredibly threatening. There was one point in the playoffs where mancloud like almost soloed the Curse backline late in the game. And specifically, Zuna has been playing a whole bunch of Tristana that Curse has not been able to shut down. And Curse went farther in one direction of something that wasn't already working. Because if you give a team Tristana, you're essentially saying, we're going to beat you before that gets good. And that hadn't worked for Curse 3 or 4 times previously, so Curse went even farther. They said, we're going to pick this really strong early game laning, we're going to pick Jarvan and try to invade your jungle, and that didn't work either. So I really wonder where Curse is going to go from here when playing against Vulcun. Because they haven't been able to stop Vulcun from getting the late game in any of these affairs. And
I remember in those same playoffs, they put Cop on Tristana one of those times, and that didn't work out either. They still got stalled out and the game was turned around. So you've really got to wonder, if you're a Curse fan, what is left in the back for these guys. It was like, maybe it's the Voyboy carry, and Vulcun bans out the Tryndamere, the one thing that might have worked for them. They kind of deny those options.
Exactly, because I don't remember exactly the Curse bans, but we do remember the Vulcun bans being very specifically targeted at Edward and Voyboy's carry and roam potential, because they didn't want Edward to be able to create pressure early game, since that was essentially what Curse has been trying to do this whole time.
There we go. Saintvicious getting shoved out of his own jungle by Xmithie. You can see the level of confidence on these Vulcun players as they just sit on that opposing side of the river. Another split push is successful here as Sycho Sid takes that second turret down 6-1, 9-2 in kills, 40,000 to 30,000 if I round the numbers in gold. 25 minutes in. It's getting better and better for Vulcun. Another freaking set of gold coming in for Zuna. They just keep finding advantages to put in this game.
Zuna's got to shop eventually. Vulcun actually has to shop eventually, and I think they're going to do that now, since they've kind of completed their marathon around Curse's jungle and gotten down the 6th turret of the game. Look at 2,900 gold. Buy an item, man. But he's not
Phantom Dancer.
He's not pressured into any of this, because Curse has no ability to come into Vulcun right now. Very well played by Vulcun. They're taking it slow because they know they can.
And here we go. It's Cop looking for the fight on Zuna. Of course, Zuna has not bought for a while. He does rocket jump away from that one and saves his life. And Cop will be rewarded with some farm. So Zuna's playing it safe, knowing he's kind of behind an item right now. He's going to buy and fix that, though.
Yeah, that was really funny. It's just like, oh man, I haven't shopped in a while. I better not fight this Draven. And that's something that Cop and the rest of Curse needed to be able to do about 15 minutes ago, before Zuna was able to respond to that, before the rest of Curse had fallen so far behind. And you know Curse was trying to do those things, but it was just countered by Vulcun.
So Vulcan's still playing. It's weird because they're playing confidently. Like, we say that they don't need to push anything very hard, but Xmithie keeps like jumping in on people and trying to make engagements when it's like a 3v5 and Zuna and mancloud aren't there yet. But Xmithie is just itching to kick people around. You see he's like leading the charge every single time. He is that initiator, he is that fighter there, and is constantly looking for someone to throw things at.
And this is one of the fun games on Lee Sin, because every time you kind of go in with what seems like a suicidal Q, you know that if Curse tries to turn on him, they're either blowing their initiation, since they have 4 people who have to initiate essentially, and they all don't care about Xmithie, or if they just dive past you, well, you've already won because you just baited them into engaging on your team. So Xmithie playing freely right now because he knows he can.
And now he's setting up a really nice move on this Baron as well, taking it up. He's taking a bit of damage for that one as Zuna shoots across the wall. And we'll see if Curse actually smells anything out.
Xmithie can't take that Baron by himself. They might be in a little bit of a pickle here if they were to have over-engaged on that. But thanks to about 10 minutes of jungle vision domination, no one on Curse even knows that Xmithie is low. So there's no way they can reasonably capitalize on that, you know, little experiment by Vulcun.
And of course, Kennon's still on the right-hand side, split pushing the whole way through. They have not had someone leave this lane at pretty much any point during the game. This turret's been under siege for quite a while, and Curse, despite being this hard engaged team who wants to dive in, start fights, jump on someone, they can't start the 5v1, they can't start the 5v4, they can't stop the Baron. They've not found the initiation. They still haven't found it. Vulcun is still getting away from them.
Yeah, they did it once, and they got the kill onto Zuna.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that was one of their 2 kills in the 28 minutes. So for an incredibly aggressive team, Curse has shown remarkably little aggression, and they might have pushed out too far here as Xmithie kicks him back.
Oh my gosh, a lot of damage into Nyjacky's going to get extremely exploded right there. The damage off on the Saintvicious, he's going to flash away from that one. Sycho Sid zones out that back line and finds another kill now. It's Edward in the front. They're going to put some damage on the Cop. They're chasing the Draven down. He's trying to run away, flashes as well. Zuna still in on this one. The damage output is there. Can he get the last shots? Yes, the barriers on both sides are burned, but it's Vulcun picking up another team fight win, a 4-0.
And they just went all out for Curse. They didn't care about structure in that fight. They just cared about killing whoever they saw. They kicked backwards a tank Malphite into that team. Let's think about that for a second. What do you not want to get closer to your AD carry? A Malphite. But they didn't care because it was anyone. They recognized if they got a fight, they would win it, and they did 4-0.
And you mentioned how valuable that cannon would be at zoning out the back line. That Cop cannot dive through him. And that is what happened. They got this sort of like 4v1 where Cop is, hold on, there's a slicing maelstrom. I'm gonna weather the storm a little bit and I'll show up later. Oh, my team's dead.
Yeah, and oh no, this 3.5 item Tristana just flash jumped towards me. And if I stand to fight him, there's a Jace behind him. It was just not a happy time for Cop.
No.
I don't think.
Not really happy time much at all. So Curse really on the back foot here looking, I don't know if they even can look for the opening anymore. They're certainly feeling a little bit bad about this one. The hard engages. That was a fight where they got Malphite knocked in. They got to maybe try to fight something and couldn't find their opening here. Vulcun with 2 inhibitors down. I mean, this is surely the attempt they go for here to close it out.
I would have to agree with you here, but I think Vulcan's kind of having fun with this one. Cop is 99.5% dead right here, if I had to put a number on it.
He's going for the duel against Zuna. Zuna knocks him back as well, but puts him in a fog of war. Oh, comes by Cop. Oh my gosh, mandatory cloud. Can you melt people any harder? Just destroys Draven from the side. Zuna got a little low. Worked out though.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a little bit scared of Draven's damage. That's the dueling potential of Draven if he can actually fight someone. That is the closest Cop is ever going to get to a squishy target for the rest of this game. Because for the rest of it, he's going to be dealing with Cannon ults, Lee Sin, and just mancloud's super long range shock blasts.
So 20 seconds now until Curse Cop respawns here on Draven, and the push is here onto that bottom lane inhibitor. Of course, 5v4, Vulcun might just take the fight even under a turret. Right now they're playing the turret damage game though, just poking it out. A bit of damage. They're not going to dive yet too hard. They seem to not be too bloodthirsty, but certainly looking to close it.
No, this is just a classic example of Vulcun waiting for the minion waves to hit Curse's base. They have 2 waves of super minions coming up the sides. They know that once they make it all the way there, Curse is going to be peeled off of them. And man, Vulcun is really taking their time because they could have went in when those minion waves hit the base, but instead, they're just kind of all off and doing their own thing and hanging around.
It's something we kind of saw with the Cloud9 composition. They had relatively similar champions, and they weren't able to easily go in all that easily, I say, with the Lee Sin. He had to get these very, very choice initiations and hopefully land them. And Xmithie has found a few, certainly, but turret diving seems to not be the way he's going for this for the most part. So it's another couple of safe plays here. They're going to go and look for the Baron Nashor right here. And of course, no one from Curse is even nearby. That's going to be theirs.
Yeah, that was extra safe because they had already shown their siege as the only inhibitor that wasn't up was the farthest inhibitor away from the Baron. That was kind of like round 2 of Xmithie saying, yeah, let's 2-man Baron, because he had someone he could trade tank it with. Yeah. This time, not like the Vulcun Zuna one they tried to get earlier. But now, I think your earlier prediction is right. It was just a matter of them getting Baron first. They're going to look to end on this push freak.
Here we go. 5 men strong, a little bit low on health, but Xmithie's getting healed up by the Baron buff plus the Sona. Rapid fire used. They go for the poke down onto the turret, down below a quarter. We've got to look out for Nyjacky. The initiation, of course, still here for Curse. Curse has every single cooldown available. And it's something that you still have to be aware of. Even if you are far ahead, hardcore initiation can always lock you out and just make you regret life.
If they went too deep, maybe they could expose Zuna to a hit. And unless Zuna and Mandatory Cloud get caught in the same AoE wombo combo, and even then, I think Curse would still lose the fight. So that's why they're not doing any kind of shenanigans right here. Frankly, I'm not sure why Curse is still playing this one out.
Oh my gosh, well, all 3 inhibitors are dead. It's now down to the Nexus, and it's 2 turrets. Cop takes a bit of damage, still trying to get his damage up with the spinning axes. Stacking his bloodthirster should be full by now at this point. But the siege is here. Minions keep flooding into the base. Xmithie up in the front, shields himself away. Here comes the initiation. They just jump right onto Xmithie, putting the damage down. They get him. Sid falls as well. 2-0, and the battle could still continue. 5 versus 3, really, and Vulcun are running away. The ult from Zuna, but Cop might still chase. Blood rushes on. Not acceleration gate too much. Zuna is going to back out. Vulcun, I wonder if they're actually going to stay on this one just because Super Minions.
I think Curse fans are really mad at me right now. They're like, that's why they're playing it out, chat, because they can win fights. And I'm like, all right, man, sure, you're right. Never surrender.
And what was
That's
really
what you always tell your team.
Yeah, never surrender, man. Mulan taught us well that you got to get down to business and defeat your opponents. And what I actually liked about that fight, though, that was really cool was they crowd-controlled Sycho Sid enough that he didn't get to Zonias. That even though they hit this front line, these tanky guys,
yeah,
right?
You're right.
Xmithie is all kinds of annoying, and Sid's got an Abyssal Scepter and a Zonias, but the crowd-control chain from Curse allowed them to actually bypass some of the defensive items that Vulcun bought.
And what was really interesting about that fight is how essentially the front line of Vulcun is what died, and Curse didn't try to dive through Vulcun, because that's what Vulcun needed for their stuff to work. If they wanted the cannon ult to really hit all the targets of Curse, it had to be once Curse had dove in through. But since they just killed the cannon and the Lee Sin, who aren't necessarily super tanky frontliners, it kind of worked for them. But I also feel like Vulcun says, come on guys, let's fight for real this time. Let's go back to the inhibitors. We'll see if this one works.
Let's not throw this one away. Of course, the Flash is still available on those two frontline champions. Slicing Maelstrom and the Dragon Kick still available as well. Edward's looking for a little something. If he takes some poke, they've got to be a little aware. Inhibitor taking more and more damage as Zuna still putting the shots down. Taking damage. Void looks for a Cocoon stun. Puts out some more. Now the shields just are there and Vulcun just won't take damage. There's the inhibitor. They've got another one down.
Yeah, and they still have super minions up top, so this could just be a clean sweep of inhibitors, once again giving Vulcun number 3. Keep in mind, 3 people on their team still have Baron for another 30 seconds, so Curse still has to be apprehensive about fighting here.
Nyjacky is lurking forward. The rest of that Curse team really wants to defend before the inhib goes down, but they just can't. Super Minions on the bottom-hand side make them turn around. One Nexus turret is gone, and Vulcun are still at the front door. They've bought elixirs up on people like Sycho Sid. The team is still taking damage just from champions and poke. Xmithie back in the lines as well. Takes turret aggro, doesn't care, shields back to his team. Sid gets hit to the side. It's just not enough, though. There's the initiation. Saint just goes on in. The crescendo comes back across, and there's Sycho Sid just crushing everybody's health bars. Nyjacky's initiation is not enough. 2 kills for nothing so far. Void with a beautiful Zonias, but it just does not matter. Cop falls down as well. Void's going to get crushed. 3 or 4 picked up. The GA is going to respawn Cop, and that won't matter either. Vulcun has Curse's number, and that number is 18-4 with a victory.
35-minute win, but it was decided way before that.
Yeah.
As soon as Vulcun took control of this game, they realized their potential, and they just slowly but surely